Hey guys, it's Sajid1 again here, back again with another new video for you guys. And today is a kind of historic video because this has been long overdue, to say the least. The last time I did one of these videos was over 2 years ago, but that is a recent pickups. I am here for a recent pickups video. And if you look at my channel, you would realize the last one I did was over 2 years ago. And back then I used to do it pretty actively, but it was one of those things I started to get in new pickups and I was focusing on like other videos and other stuff, and maybe I was really busy too, and then it just builds up, and you're like, man, how do I jump into this and cover all these games? But regardless, I was struggling for a long time how to return to recent pickups because it has been so long. And then it hit me one day, it's like, you know what, let's just start over fresh. So we're going to be covering basically everything I picked up in the month of September. So yeah, it's over 2 years ago, but just rest assured that in that 2 year span I've probably added at least a couple hundred games, new systems, and a lot of interesting stuff. And I feel bad that I can't share all that with you, but I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to sit here for like 12 hours talking about like everything I got in the past 2 years. So let's just start fresh. This is everything I picked up in September. First one was a big one. It was a game I was really anticipating, and a sequel to one of my favorite games this year. And it's really made me fall in love with the kind of mystery adventure genre slash visual novel genre. But that is, of course, Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair. This is the limited edition. And I played it back when it came out in like early September, and I beat it. It's a really long game. Like, despite a lot of other mystery adventure games are usually a little bit shorter, this is a really long game. The Danganronpa games are really long. It took me almost like 50 plus hours to clear the whole story. The class trials take a long time, and then there's a lot of dialogue to take in, and just a lot. But just what a wonderful sequel to like one of my favorite games. I thought it wouldn't be able to improve on the first one, and to be honest, it improved on the first one. It had a lot of interesting characters. I think I'm maybe partial towards a lot of the characters in the first one, like just because it was the first one and I loved a lot of the characters in the first one. But the characters in here are still very likable. The story is interesting. It follows them going to Jabberwock Island, and obviously it turns into a killing game again, but it's really interesting and gets really interesting later on towards the end of the game, which I highly recommend that you actually play Danganronpa, the first one. So it's not like a sequel that you can just like jump into, because later on in the second one it starts to talk about the first one a lot and references the first one a lot, and kind of helps flesh out the backstory for like what happened in the first one and what's happening in the second one. Just an incredible story, really incredible art style, fantastic music, lovable characters, witty dialogue. It references a lot of stuff from like other video games to anime. It's just, Monokuma is just one of the most wonderful characters in video game history. He's so interesting, and this is just a must play for mystery adventure games. It's got elements of like Phoenix Wright with the class trials, and some kind of, Professor Layton visual novel references in there and stuff like that. Just a really enjoyable game though, and some really brutal murders in this game because it shows all of that. But man, I absolutely love Danganronpa 2. What a great follow-up to one of my favorite games this year. Okay, and the next two items I'm going to share with you guys are limited editions I've been wanting for a while, but I just kind of waited on them. They came out way back when. They've been out for a while, but I felt like the prices were right on these because they dropped in price, both of them, and I had some credit too, so it really only cost me like, I believe, 20 bucks for both of the limited editions I'm going to show. But the first one I picked up here is a limited edition I've been wanting. That's Sorcery Saga, Curse of the Great Curry God. Let's get this right. Hot and Spicy, Everything Nicey limited edition. That's the name of it. This is probably gets the award for one of the most strangest limited editions ever. And it's not really a good limited edition because it doesn't really have anything that's, kind of novel and usable, like an art book or soundtrack. Basically what this comes with is a curry plate, like a little plastic plate, a plastic spoon, and a bib. But if you take it into context, it references like what this game's about. But from what I gather and from what I remember about Sorcery Saga, it's kind of a more traditional roguelike, and I'm a really big fan of like traditional roguelikes, like turn-based. It's kind of like traditional turn-based, grid-based, like when you move, the enemies move and stuff like that. Just really traditional. Games like Guided Fate Paradox or ZHP on Losing Ranger, Shiren the Wanderer, stuff like that, roguelikes like that. And it's kind of reminiscent to stuff like this. I believe if the story's right, like she's trying to make like the best curry or something. Like, it's a silly Japanese kind of roguelike, but it's made by Compile, and definitely interested in trying this out, but there's some more Vita games coming out pretty soon that I want to play, so I don't know when I'm going to get around to playing this, unfortunately. Okay, the other limited edition set I also mentioned that I picked up was a limited edition set that I honestly wasn't like totally on the lookout for, but the price was pretty cheap actually. I guess it dropped in price. And it's a game I've been wanting to check out, and I use the word game loosely because it's technically not a game because it's a visual novel. But it's a visual novel I've been wanting to read for a while. Came out on the PSP, and this is actually a port of it for the PS3, but that is the Hakuoki Stories of the Shinsengumi Limited Edition. And this is a port of Hakuoki Demon of Fleeting Blossom, so it's the same game, same story that came out on the PSP, same visual novel, except it has like additional character scenes, additional stories. So there's a lot of added content, I guess. But man, you know, like ever since playing Danganronpa, like to be honest, like I wasn't the biggest mystery adventure fan. Like games like 999 and like Danganronpa in particular really started to make me fall in love with the genre of mystery adventures and visual novels and getting a really interesting experience from just reading. And it's not a demanding, they're not demanding games too, because really it just relies on you being able to read, which is a nice change of pace, especially, you know, kind of late night when you just want to unwind. So I actually read through the whole Hakuoki here, the main kind of story, or Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. It took about 9 hours or so to kind of read through the main story. And it's kind of broken up into chapters, and at first I really wasn't like interested, it didn't grip me right away, but this actually started to get really interesting. I believe it's chapter 2, and kind of from there on, once they start to introduce these kind of paranormal aspects. But basically the kind of underlying story for Hakuoki stars a girl named Chizuru, and she's kind of taken in by this Shinsengumi, which is this group of samurais that are basically kind of protecting Kyoto. And they're kind of like not regarded as like the greatest people out there to kind of look down upon. And this takes place during feudal Japan, and it's a lot to do with feudal Japan, so a lot of the dialogue kind of reflects that. But it starts to get really interesting because like she's looking out for her father, who kind of like disappeared one day, and she goes to Kyoto to try and find any info she can. And then she stumbles across a really weird event when she gets there, and she kind of gets trapped into the Shinsengumi. But they kind of start to raise her as like one of their own, and they start to get closer, and you get to learn all these characters, you get to develop more with all these characters. But you start to learn that her father's kind of associated with the Shinsengumi in a way. But the most interesting element is when they introduce this kind of element of Furies, as they call them. And Furies are these really weird things, and I don't want to spoil it too much because it's probably the most interesting part of the game, and it's a real turning point. But if you played through this, you probably know what I mean when I'm talking about the Furies. And once they started talking about that, I was like, man, this is kind of really interesting, because at first it felt like a kind of traditional feudal Japan story, but then it evolved into something that's really unique and really kind of almost paranormal twist, which was really interesting, and it hooked me from then on. There's some really interesting things that they incorporate, even though it's a visual novel. I really like the idea that in the dialogue, whenever there's like a highlighted word, you can just easily look up the word like right then and there, so that was really helpful to kind of get some backstory. But a really interesting story actually that I wound up really enjoying. So if you're a fan of visual novels, I think you'd really enjoy Hakuoki, whichever way you can get it. I believe there's also a 3DS version too, so there's plenty of versions to get on multiple systems, so definitely check it out any way you can if you're a fan of visual novels. And next is a PS3 RPG that came out in September that I was looking forward to, that I unfortunately have not played yet because the companies think it's a good idea to just release RPG after RPG after RPG every other week. So it's like I'm having a hard time right now keeping up with all these RPG releases, and I'm pretty sure all the RPG fans can relate with me. But the game I got was Fairy Fencer F, the limited edition. I did an unboxing for all these NIS America sets. I've done unboxings for, if you don't know that, so you can go back and check those out to learn more about the contents. But unfortunately I haven't played Fairy Fencer F, it's still brand new, and that's because I've been playing another game which we'll get to later on. But yeah, picked up Fairy Fencer F, and I am looking forward to checking it out because I really love the music from what I heard, and I like the art style a lot. So Fairy Fencer F. And like I said before, I picked up Fairy Fencer F, but I haven't played it yet because I've mainly been playing this PS3 RPG, which came out like a week after it. So that's what I mean, we're trying to keep up with like all these RPG releases. And I was looking forward to trying out this one, and I wanted to play it right away once I got it. So, and I've still been working my way through it. I'm about, I don't know, I'd say like probably 75% through. But that's our Nosurge, Ode to an Unborn Star. This is a prequel to the Artanelica series, which I actually really like, and a follow-up to a Japanese Vita game we never got called CL Nosurge. And this is it's a really different RPG, and it's hard to recommend it to everyone because, to be honest, this game really does rely heavily on the fact that you played the other Artanelica games. So if you're a fan of the Artanelica series, I kind of do recommend this because it's actually really good. The combat's very similar to like the PS2 Artanelica games. You kind of have like a character and then a heroine who's like singing song magic, and is heavy based on like pulling off combos that are kind of mapped to the face buttons and stuff like that. But it's a really interesting story, but it borrows a lot of mythologies and kind of ideologies and terminology that's established in the Artanelica series, which makes this game actually kind of really hard to play and get into if you haven't played any of the Artanelica games. So if you haven't played any of the Artanelica games, I would say maybe stay clear from this one and check out like the actual Artanelica games. But it is kind of, I guess, partially you can jump into it if you haven't played it. You're just going to have to do a lot of reading because, almost similar to Hakuoki, if there's any like highlighted words in this game, you can press, I believe it's the square button, to like read up on like that terminology and stuff like that. And you're going to have to be doing a lot of that in this game, but it's a really dialogue heavy game too. I'd say like 70% of it is spent reading dialogue. There's tons of dialogue in this game, and it focuses more on dialogue, and it's really heavily story driven more than anything. So the gameplay that's there is really enjoyable. I really enjoy the battle system. But I've been really enjoying it, and then I'm just a fan of the Artanelica series, so I knew I'd probably enjoy this. But Nosurge. Okay, next up we have two DS RPGs that I was really happy to pick up, and I'm just trying to go through the DS kind of currently and getting a bunch of games that I've been wanting to get for a while, because for a while I kind of stopped buying DS games for a long period of time and trying to get back into it. But I picked up two RPGs I've been really wanting on the DS, and for 10 bucks each, like, I couldn't pass it up. Now, I couldn't believe it when I saw the prices, but first one we have here is a really classic traditional RPG, and that's Nostalgia. And Nostalgia is just like, based off the name, it's a very traditional kind of RPG. You know, it's just everything tried and true about a traditional RPG. I believe it's turn-based. I haven't played these games yet, but I wanted to pick them up. But it looks really good. It's 3D modeled, so it's kind of got that DS kind of 3D look going on, but I don't mind that, and it actually looks really interesting. So I'm a fan of like traditional turn-based RPGs, or just traditional RPGs in general. They're fun to delve into every now and then, but that's Nostalgia. And the other game I picked up that I was super happy to get, because it's been on my want list for the DS for a while, and I finally found it for 10 bucks. Couldn't believe it, but that's My World, My Way on the DS. This is a very interesting RPG published by Atlas that's kind of geared towards like a young female audience, kind of hence the like overly girly color scheme here. But it's actually a really interesting like RPG. It has this like mechanic that you can kind of control elements of the world and stuff like that. And it just looks like a really interesting RPG. Like, I haven't seen anything quite like it, and the gameplay is really interesting. So I'm really looking forward to actually checking out My World, My Way sometime. But I'm really happy to add this to the collection. And that's pretty much everything I picked up in September. And like I mentioned before, this has been over 2 years overdue, and I really apologize, but for a long time I just, I was probably busy a lot because I was still in college and I was doing a lot of stuff at the time, and I just kind of forgot about recent pickups, or I did other videos, and then next thing you know, I just picked up so much stuff to the point where I couldn't really cover it. So I'm glad I'm back in this, and I really do enjoy recent pickups. I know recent pickups is a popular thing to do in the YouTube community. I mean, heck, there's even channels that are just dedicated to showing recent pickups. But this will be a monthly thing, and I'll pretty much just cover every month what I picked up, and there might be some slow months or busy months. But I want to do these basically like at the first of every month. So on the first of every month, I'll have a recent pickups video for covering the last month. So look forward to that, and look forward to the return. I hope you enjoyed these recent pickups, and I'd like to thank you guys for watching as always. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye guys.